Hey everybody, welcome back. This is Telltale and I'm Emily. Greg and I are going to be reviewing the classic sci-fi book, The Purple Cloud. It is real intense, yeah. So we're gonna kind of switch things up a little bit because we're gonna give you the history first of kind of the background of the story of the author, that kind of thing. So I'm gonna pass it off to Greg real quick. So.
The Purple Cloud was written by M.P. Shiel. His full name was Matthew Phipps Shiel. He was born in Montserrat, West Indies, as a British citizen to parents of mixed race. So he had, I believe, a black father and a white mother. His father was the one from the Caribbean. He was born on July 21st, 1865, and died in 1947. His father had purchased a very small island in the Caribbean, and so when his father died, M.P. Shiel took the title of King of Redonda. He started writing as a teenager and fairly quickly was heavily influenced by Edgar Allan Poe. And so he kind of adopted Poe's style of being very descriptive and very long sentences, very long paragraphs, much like H.P. Lovecraft did. And so his writing style is typically described as decadent. M.P. Shiel also believed that science would bring us closer to God. The Purple Cloud was published in 1901. It is one of only a very small number of science fiction stories he published. Most of his fiction was detective fiction or mystical occult fantasies. The Purple Cloud is the only work of his that has been filmed, but only very loosely based on the Purple Cloud, is the movie in the late 50s, The World, the Flesh, and the Devil.
All right, The Purple Cloud, the synopsis. Let's dive right into it. So this is a Last Man on Earth story, which I'll be honest, I did not think I would like a Last Man on Earth story, but it is a pretty classic sci-fi read, so I figured we're gonna give it a whirl, see what happens. So this one, the synopsis is this doctor kind of has these prophetic inclinations that weird things are going to start happening to him, and a dear cousin of his or friend or something like that is going on a expedition to the, I believe it's the North Pole, or was it the South Pole, one of the poles, and there's a giant reward for whoever gets to step on the pole first. So this other doctor is extremely ill. He has a drug problem, and our main character, he has to come and take care of this other doctor because he's become extremely ill. He's kind of overdosed on stuff. He's not doing so hot. And the fiance is suspected of poisoning this other doctor because she wants her fiance to go on the expedition and get them a ton of money. Not that this woman is poor. She's actually pretty well off, but who isn't greedy? So the other doctor ends up dying from an overdose because he's got this drug problems, and perhaps he's being poisoned by by this other lady. So our main character, he goes on the expedition, and it is like a shit show from there. Like, basically, one guy suspects he poisoned the other guy, so they have a duel, and people die, and they're on this expedition and freezing over, and things are weird, and he keeps having these like prophetic-ish dreams or like inclinations that kind of direct him and where he's going, and like wake him up from sleep and tell him, you got to get to the pole first. And he gets there. He has like a psychotic break when he gets there because he just feels like something terribly wrong has happened. Plus, like, getting to the pole was really a weird experience. Like, it seemed very alien to him. So, yeah. So then he travels back trying to find the shoreline. As he's going, there's this smell in the air that smells like peach blossoms everywhere. And there's like this purple cloud in the distance that he keeps seeing that kind of comes and goes. And as he's kind of going closer and closer to the edge of the continent, he's finding that like masses of animals are dead. Um, his friends he ended up abandoning. He kind of comes back to the camp, and yeah, they're dead too. Um, so he just kind of keeps traveling on his own with the team of dogs that he took to get to the pole first. And yeah, he basically, like, everyone's dead. He gets to the edge of the continent. He's like, well, I guess I can try and figure out how to get over there. But then he finds the ship that he and the team came on. Everyone on the ship is dead. Like, mysterious. There's purple dust all over everything. So he just kind of commandeers this ship and starts sailing the oceans. And at first he's afraid to go on land, and then he goes on land, and he just kind of realizes, like, he starts piecing together what's happened. There was some kind of volcanic eruption that released these chemicals into the air. The cloud was drifting over the entire surface of the world because of the way wind patterns were working. And basically, everyone's dead. Like, there was no way to escape it. There was no way to make solid, airtight rooms that people could survive in for any extended period of time. Those who did survive ended up starving because everybody got greedy and started eating things. And, so he's just seeing all this evidence and all these mass graves. Like, entire towns are mass graves. There's mixed races everywhere because people were leaving their countries and going to the next safest country that they could get to. Some people just kind of, you see them resolved to the fact that things are they're not going to survive. So he's finding people doing just ordinary daily things. He comes across at one point a home where a wedding has occurred. So then, like, in order to travel across the world, land masses and stuff, he commandeers railways. Like, he basically just starts using these stinking trains to get across, and every time he encounters a blockage, he just walks until he finds the next train and then just fixes it up, starts it, and goes. A little far-fetched for me. I don't know how a medical doctor suddenly becomes an engineer. Like, I don't know. Like, you suddenly can run a steamship that takes an entire team to run? Really? By yourself? No? Yeah? Train? Okay, cool. So a little far-fetched, but enough plausible deniability where you kind of just want that to be the case, because you don't want this guy to be stuck in one place forever, or walking everywhere, because that would make for a really boring story. He needs to get from point A to point B pretty quickly. So yeah, it's just a really interesting read about this guy who's the last man on Earth. He also at one point has all these psychotic breaks because, of course, he keeps thinking there are ghosts around, or like suddenly having dreams that there are people who are alive and going to other continents, and like he's caught between wanting to meet another person, but after a significant amount of time, he's like almost terrified to meet another person. Like, because he is so used to being alone now that he's like afraid that there are other people who are alive. After he goes through at the beginning of the book, he goes through a search to see if he can find anybody who's alive. And he does, wanders Europe, where he's from, forever, like for a really long time. And then he just starts, going and commandeering boats and just sailing the seas and finding another place to locate. And he never quite settles down. Like, he tries to build homes, and he tries to take root somewhere, and he keeps running into like psychotic breaks where he goes and he's decided, I'm gonna go burn down San Francisco. So he does. Like, he becomes a pyromaniac at one time, which is very entertaining because he's just like having these psychotic breaks and going and burning shit. It's really kind of funny. The climax of the book, one of the faults I think of the book actually, is that the climax is not until like 70% through the book. which is a little late, I think, for a significant turn of events to happen. But at the same time, you do kind of have to watch him spiral into this psychosis in order to understand how fateful his psychosis ends up being. So it is good plotting, really great world building, because of course he's going all over the world, and he's really poetic at how he describes things. At one point he tries to build a temple to God to be his new home, and it's like all gold and silver and precious stones, and he has like a lake pool thing made entirely of wine. It's like really entertaining and very descriptive. It's interesting. And then at some points he lives in really exotic places, so he talks about all the exotic things that he does or has, and living in palaces because everyone's dead, so why not. Just little things, and the little things he does to try and like get back a sense of normal. Like at one point he gets like a phonograph and starts listening to records he's finding places because he just desperately wants to hear a human voice. He's but he has like an infinite amount of stuff. Like, even though he doesn't have, like, a lot of animals are dead, at one point nature starts kind of coming back, but for the most part he has everything he needs because the whole world is just full of commerce. Like, there's canned goods everywhere, there's preserved things everywhere, an unsurmountable amount of clothing, homes. Like, he just never goes without the whole time he's down there, while he's constantly trying to deal with the fact that he is the only one. And while he's being taken care of, he's trying to like have this inner philosophical argument about whether there are it's good forces versus evil forces, or what he calls the white and the black in his life. So he's trying to figure out, now that he's the only man on earth, who's prevailing. Is it the good or is it the evil? So he feels like it's the evil because he feels like so crazy and corrupt, and it's really interesting. So definitely recommend it. Really love the way it ends. I'm not going to give you a spoiler alert personally. Greg might, because I really liked the ending. I thought it was very hopeful and appropriate. And I'm not going to tell you. It's a secret. So yeah, I'd say this is a very entertaining one. If you can push through the psychosis things a little bit, because those can get a little like, oh great, he's going to go burn another city, good job, kind of thing. If you can get through that kind of stuff, it really is worth it. It's a really worthwhile. There's some really deep philosophy in it. I highly recommend it. It's pretty good. So yeah, I can't wait to hear what Greg thinks.
The Purple Cloud is an apocalyptic, last man on earth novel. So it has ideas, it has philosophy, but it's a lot more about the person, the character, than it is about the future of mankind, evolution, the kind of really big, broad social issues that H.G. Wells focuses on. And I'm more of the H.G. Wells camp, so you can imagine I prefer Wells to Shiel, but I did love this book. It's an excellent book. It deserves to be called a science fiction classic. It deserves to be better known, and it deserves to be read by you. Because it's unlike a lot of other science fiction back then. I feel it has dated very well. The science in it may be kind of fantastical, but it's all plausible. I mean, the Earth could go into a period of volcanic activity, releasing ash and stuff that does kill all of us off. The supervolcano at Yellowstone could blow up and wipe out the entire eastern United States, as well as cause huge problems for the rest of the world. So this isn't entirely impossible. It's got some grounding in reality, and so the whole story is very realistic, told realistically. But it kind of takes the character on a journey very similar to Dante pursuing Beatrice. First, the character, he was in the Arctic at the North Pole. He goes back to England and travels to some other places and sees all the death and destruction, and that kind of pushes him into madness. So he's going around burning all the big cities. And then he meets a woman, and then starts phase 2 of this story, where he kind of comes back from that madness and starts to become a more normal person. However, that's the part of the book that really I had the hardest time with, is that this guy is just a total jerk towards this woman. She's the only woman on the planet, and he's being a jerk towards her. I just didn't like that. But it's served a purpose for the story, because eventually he does realize that he wants her around, and he does love her, and he starts treating her better. So the story is a journey of this character through his growth toward being a better person, really, which does mirror the entire Divine Comedy, just without the literal descent into hell and purgatory and heaven. So it's a very good story, very early science fiction story, 1901. It's contemporary with books like War of the Worlds and When the Sleeper Wakes, and First Men in the Moon, I think, was exactly 1901. So it's contemporary with a lot of H.G. Wells' best stories. And unfortunately, I don't have a book to hold up, because I didn't see a book I really loved the publication of, the design of. And that's one of the things we're all about with Telltale, is the design of the book, the look of the book, crafting really, really fine books. And I think The Purple Cloud has not had a good enough publication yet. It deserves a really excellent collectible edition. So at any rate, though, there are plenty of ebooks. You can get it for free off Project Gutenberg. Go ahead and read this book. It's an excellent book. You'll enjoy it. It stands the test of time and is an enjoyable read today, without having to understand the time in which it was written, like a lot of older novels. And you don't have to worry about any racist crap in it like you do a lot of other novels of that time, because the guy was half black. And that's another really significant thing about this novel, is he's probably the first writer of color to write science fiction. So very groundbreaking writing. Although in the photos he doesn't look like a black guy. I don't know. He looks more British. He has some wild hair going on. Anyway, excellent book, excellent writer. You should read it. For our future, we are going to come out of the COVID hibernation and get together like we did in our very first videos. We're going to do our videos together. Next week, Emily's going to be on her own reviewing a book that she wanted to read called Against Empathy. It's a non-fiction book, which she believes is really excellent. I haven't read it. I don't know. But the week after that, we're together. We're filming it together. It's going to be us talking about Stanley G. Weinbaum's A Martian Odyssey, a short story. And then after that one comes Harry Harrison's Death World. So we got some good stuff coming up. Come back and join us on Friday. Go on our YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, whatever accounts you can find of us, and comment on these things. Tell us what you're reading. Go into the Telltale discussion group on Facebook, and you can post anything. We prefer that it be about books. We prefer that it not get really nasty, but tell us a book you're reading and give us your views of it. Give us your thoughts on The Purple Cloud. Give us your thoughts on literature in general, and what your preferences are. Go ahead and talk. It's open to you. You can post there. You don't have to have us post something and you list comments. You can go in and do your own posts on our discussion group and start engaging us. And if we have time and any ideas, we will respond to you. in the discussion group and get some conversations going. That'll be a great thing. So we hope to hear from you. We hope you'll see us every Friday. And we might be coming up with some midweek surprises in the future. I've got a story I really want to read and just can't fit it into the normal Friday schedule. So that might happen. So we'll see you next time.